Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the scary story guy. Ooh. And today we're coming to the end of the Insidious film franchise, or at least the end so far. Insidious, the last key. Apparently there may be a fifth Insidious movie. We'll talk about that at the end of the video, but for now, let's dive in. So Insidious, the last key centers on the psychic, Elise Rainier, as she's called upon to help with a haunting that is taking place in her childhood home. As such, the movie goes back and forth between scenes from the present day and scenes from Elise's childhood. And it's a rough childhood, man. You just want to give her a hug. The movie actually opens with one of these flashback scenes. And I've got to say, I loved the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie. It was genuinely awesome. There's this cool somber music going on during what's easily the series' most well-made title sequence. And then that leads directly into a flashback scene, which is really, really exceptional. In particular, this girl they got to play young Elise is like a perfect version of Lin Shaye as a 6-year-old. She's as good a child actor as you'll find in one of these movies. From there we go to old Elise in the present day, and she's just hanging out with her equally old dog, and it's actually a fairly moving depiction of the aging process and how these childhood scars stick with us throughout our lives. Well done. And yeah, Lin Shaye is just so good throughout this entire series. It really is remarkable that a 70-something-year-old woman is headlining one of the biggest horror series of the 21st century, but here we are. She's really lovable as this character, and even though she dies at the end of Insidious 1, so it's not exactly going to end well for her, she's great fun along the way. I'll tell you who's not fun, though, are her two helpers, Tucker and Specs. Oh my god, these guys might be my least favorite characters in any movie, ever. And they're in all 4 movies. I had a bit of a problem with these guys throughout the series. They got way worse as the movies progressed, though. And we haven't really talked about them that much yet, so we're going to throw down right now. My roast of Dermot Mulroney's name in the last video was all in good fun. This will not be. I hate these guys. In the first movie, they're not too bad. They're mostly just there as these background characters who make some vague attempts at comic relief, whatever. But Leigh Whannell, the writer of this series, somehow, inexplicably, became convinced that these characters need to be major players in every movie in the franchise going forward, that we need to learn everything there is to know about their personal backstory, and that they're the 2 funniest people on planet Earth, and so we should crank their comic relief dial up to 11 every time they're on the screen. It's so bizarre, I can't imagine a single person was asking for this. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that Leigh Whannell actually plays one of these guys. Yeah, that guy, with the glasses. That's Leigh Whannell! I mean, talk about spiting your face. This dude writes a solid horror franchise. He even directs the 3rd movie, and he does a fine job with all of it. And then he casts himself as the character that ruins the entire thing. And it's not just that Tucker and Specs provide too much comic relief, and it's not even that some of their jokes are the most painfully unfunny jokes ever committed to screen. It's that almost every joke they make is placed in such a way that it absolutely shatters the tone of whatever scene is taking place. It's so jarring, you almost can't even believe it made it through production. I honestly just didn't even care about the horror scenes in this movie because I knew one of these assholes was just gonna show up and make another stupid joke. It reaches a new level in this movie, though, because on top of being unfunny and ruining the tone, these dudes are incredibly creepy in this movie. 2 of the new characters in this movie are young women, probably in their late teens or early 20s, and this movie just bombards us with scene after scene of Tucker and Specs making really weird and, in some cases, borderline predatory advances towards them. And the movie tries to present it as oh, look how awkward these guys are around women, isn't that endearing? But in truth, it's just deeply uncomfortable to watch, and the women are way more tolerant of it than any woman actually would be in real life. I mean, the choices being made here are just bewildering on the part of the screenwriters. There's a scene where Tucker leans in to kiss one of these women. He has met her 30 seconds prior in a professional context. There's nothing leading up to it. He just leans in, and it's played for laughs. It's so weird. Honestly, I feel like a sequel should probably be made to this movie, where it's just these girls trying to escape from Tucker and Specs, who were the real threat all along. So yeah, those guys. Unfortunately, my other complaint from Insidious Chapter 3 also holds up here. The Further is just not nearly as cool or interesting as it is in the first 2 movies. Part of what made Insidious such a phenomenon is the fact that this otherworldly realm, The Further, besides being just a repository for jump scares, is also incredibly weird. The things you see in The Further in the first 2 movies are pretty disturbing. It almost feels like walking through a wax museum. There's some distortion to everyday things that is incredibly effective visually. Whereas in the 3rd and 4th movies, they basically just turn on a fog machine and call it good. I'm struggling to rate this movie because even though I obviously hated several aspects of it and it's not particularly scary, there's actually a lot to be recommended here. The Elise story is actually good, and the performance is outstanding. The flashback sequences are a lot closer to what made this series great. Also, Lin Shaye delivers a line here near the end that to me goes in the horror movie line hall of fame. The second she said it, I knew I was bumping the movie up a half a star. I gave the last movie 2.5 stars, which was probably generous, but I've got to rate this movie higher, so I'm going to give Insidious: The Last Key 3 stars out of 5. Ugh, yeah, that just feels way too high. Thank God nobody's counting on me to do this correctly. Well, there you have it. All 4 Insidious movies, the good and the bad, reviewed for your pleasure. Which leads me to what comes next. Late last year, Insidious 5 was announced. I rolled my eyes when I saw the headline, I'll admit. However, a few details do give me optimism, or at least intrigue. First of all, this is not another one-off Elise movie. This is actually a continuation of the storyline of the first 2 films, with Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne reprising their roles a full decade later. Second of all, Patrick Wilson is actually slated to direct this film. I'm interested to see how that goes. Finally, even though the basic story will be created by Lee Whannell himself is not writing the script, which means, God willing, we might get less Tucker and Specs. Maybe we'll find out that after Elise's death, they tried to carry on the ghost hunting business and just got absolutely murked by the first demon they came across. That would be lovely. Guys, as always, if you'd like to see more scary movie reviews like this one, please subscribe. If you'd like to read my original horror stories, I'll put the links to that in the description below. Thanks for watching my video. Here's hoping you survive to see the next one.